Can you make me a co-host?
Mhm.
There we go. All right. I'm going to let everybody in. All right. Welcome, everyone. Hello, and welcome to our second annual New Year Wellness Series, backed by popular demand and packed with meaningful guidance on spiritual, relational, emotional, nutritional, physical, and mental wellness. I'm Sarah Green, the wellness consultant at the Marcus Institute of Integrative Health at FAU Medicine. Integrative health is a holistic, patient-focused approach to healthcare and wellness. At the Marcus Institute, our physicians treat the whole person by examining everything that makes up a patient's health, including factors that can lead to disease, affect nutrition, exercise, and stress. Ultimately, patients and physicians are partners in healing and wellness. The Marcus Institute is pleased to co-sponsor this series with our friends at the Robin Rubin Center for Happiness and Life Enhancement. The center is housed in the Sandler School of Social Work within the College of Social Work and Criminal Justice at FAU. They offer weekly online meditation sessions, bi-monthly in-person yoga classes, and monthly wellness workshops. All of their offerings are free of charge and open to everyone, students, faculty, staff, friends, and family. We are posting links in the chat now. Invite you to learn more about the Marcus Institute and the Robin Rubin Center and make plans to join us again in the near future. So I am so honored to introduce our speaker for today. Dr. Julie Plitzis is a neurosurgeon with a passion for treating chronic neurological disorders that interrupt a person's day-to-day function and abilities. Illnesses that fall under this term can include chronic pain, Parkinson's disease, essential tremor, obsessive compulsive disorders. Board certified in neurological surgery, Dr. Plitzis serves as Dean for the Schmidt College of Medicine, Vice President of Medical Affairs, and is affiliated with the Boca Raton Regional Hospital and Marcus Neuroscience Institute. She received an MD with distinction from Albany Medical College, a PhD in physiology from Wayne State University, and an MBA with a concentration in health informatics from Fayetteville State University. Dr. Plitzis completed residency training in neurosurgery at Wayne State University and fellowship in functional neurosurgery from Rush University Medical Center. Dean Plitzis, thank you so very much for your leadership and for your time and expertise today. Please take it away.
Well, thanks so much, Sarah, for having me, Ashley for organizing this, and for Robin for having the vision of these Wellness Wednesdays. And it's a great honor just to be here because I'm passionate about everything that these groups stand for. So I wanted to talk a little bit, kind of about East meets West medicine and looking at brain disorders from two different ways. So, my title, thus the title of my talk is Neurodegenerative Disorders, a Palette of Treatments. So unfortunately, when we think about Parkinson's or we think about Alzheimer's, they get grouped into this term called neurodegenerative disorders, which is negative. It doesn't really tell you what you're talking about. And, it leaves some unclearness with what we are actually doing. The way this name kind of came to be is, unfortunately, in this day and age, by the time you get diagnosed with Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, you have lost a number of the key cells in the brain. And, our hope moving forward is that we'll be able to diagnose these diseases earlier so that a cure and a meaningful symptom control can be a reality. We have a number of ways to treat the disorders, which I'll touch briefly upon. So, just in basic terms, Alzheimer's disease is a progressive disease. And many of us, as we age, experience normal memory loss. And sometimes we become concerned that, could this be Alzheimer's? And, at that point, it's good to see your physician. But when you have Alzheimer's, it is atypical memory loss. It's not just, forgetting where you put your keys or forgetting somebody's name, but can be much more pronounced. And we know, especially in our community where we have some communities where the mean average age is 65 and up, this is something that really plagues a lot of people. And, I think one of the hardest parts about getting older is this inability to live by yourself. We all want to be able to take care of ourselves and don't want to be a burden, want to stay in our homes. And, Alzheimer's, that can be a hard thing to do in Alzheimer's. And, though we don't have anything curative, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that we can do to make sure that quality of life stays improved. Parkinson's disease is another very common disorder. And in fact, as you get to your 80s, 1 in 8 people has some type of symptoms of Parkinson's disorder. This is kind of an example tremor that we see on a screen. It's not generally a tremor where you're eating or drinking or using your hand, but it's a tremor at rest can be one of the symptoms. Michael J. Fox actually in his autobiography talks about how he woke up one day with a tremor in his pinky, and that was his initial symptom. Having said that, I've seen in treating patients a variety of different symptoms that can start their Parkinson's disease. And that's why it's often misdiagnosed in up to a third of people. So if you look at all the symptoms that can cause this, I remember I had one person that was a professional dancer and he noted being a little bit more discoordinated. So it can be a variety of things, but again, something that dramatically impacts our community. So for Alzheimer's disease, unfortunately, there aren't so many medications. We've had a couple that have gotten through FDA and then had some benefit. We have some that can improve some memory, but they have dramatic side effects. And, so we're still looking for some good medications for Alzheimer's. And again, if you're worried about you or a family member having this, it's really important to see a physician to see what could be causing this. There are many things that can cause memory loss. Stress, depression can be very common things. Parkinson's, we have more medications than we do have in Alzheimer's. Ironically, the tried and true, for many of you that saw Awakenings, that movie with Robin Williams from way back when, that was carbidopa levodopa. That was a medication that allowed people to move. And that is still the best medication we have for Parkinson's. We do some things where we can control how it's released and improve the impact of carbidopa levodopa, but this is still the tried and true. But, I think when we're talking about medications, what we're talking about is things that are disease specific, the medical care, the medicines you get with this, things that are meant to control some of those motor or memory symptoms. But for anybody that has a chronic illness, the disease specific and medical component of this is just but a part of this. There's so much else that goes along with this. Depression and anxiety really affects nearly everyone with Parkinson's. It is something that, one, it's hard to live with a chronic illness. It's hard to think about not being independent, but also when you have these changes in your brain, it can affect parts of your brain that control your emotions. So this can be part of the disease itself, but there are ways to treat this as well. And then I think, the psychosocial components of living with any chronic disease can be really a challenge. We all fall into our routines when you're married for a good amount of time or you're your role as the matriarch or patriarch of the family. And these things can change, as can your role at work as a disease progresses. And this can be a really hard part about understanding what you can do. The other fact is, regardless of whether we have a chronic disease, we may, also have some of those changes that go along with aging. And, I think that understanding what is normal and, why we can't do the things that we could do when we were 20, sometimes escapes us. I had a really big moment with that when, probably about 10 years ago, I thought I'd show my daughter how to do a cartwheel, realizing that I hadn't done one in, decades. Probably not the best thing for me to have done. So I think when we're talking about psychosocial aspects or depression or anxiety or even the disease itself, life is not living in between doctor's appointments. It's going out and enjoying it. And, it's really important to focus in quality. And, it's probably interesting to have a neurosurgeon talking to you about quality of life. But in fact, you'll see my specialty I chose just for that. So I think it's important to have an outlet. What that outlet can be looks very different from person to person. Sarah, who introduced me, I see her all the time when we have a similar outlet. So we meet at yoga, mindfulness, gardening, so many things, reading a book, watching Netflix, whatever it is, just have some sort of outlet. And then I think, coming to events like this or other events that, with Wellness Wednesdays and our outreach events is really important, because having a community can really make this better. It gives you a sense of belonging, others that feel like what you're feeling like, gets you some relationships where you can think about other things that than your, the disease that you're suffering with. So when we think about Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, there's a number of integrative techniques that can be used. And I wanted to talk specifically today a little bit about the research that's been done in art therapy. So you see on this slide, I have many things. We have the mental and cognitive therapy that people talk about all the time with aging, as well in people with a disease or anybody, problem solving, memory, and other things. We have other therapies that are offered at Marcus Institute, like yoga, acupuncture, and massage. And we have been doing a lot of community outreach and are going to continue doing even more in the realm of art therapy with our College of Arts and Letters, also on FAU campus. So what is art therapy? Basically this is stimulating your creative juices and, using any of these means of creativity to symbolize and express yourself and what you're feeling. This can be anything from music, sculpture, painting, dance, drawing. And this has been shown time and time again to improve the symptoms of the disease, stress, and overall quality of life. So this idea is not new. And in fact, it was something that was introduced in the 1940s, where patients were given easels to, see what they could produce. And it was thought originally as a means of enhancing well-being. What has been very interesting for me is, if you look at the pictures on the right side of this screen, what I've seen in my time working with people with Parkinson's, it's very interesting because as one part of the brain doesn't work quite as well as we want to, sometimes this creative outlet can work much better. So if you go to, the Lewis Green Memory and Wellness Center, you'll see on the walls all the artwork from Alzheimer's patients. And we've done similar with patients that have Parkinson's, where they may not have had a creative bone in their body, and something happens with the plasticity in the brain, and they're able to do work such as that on the right side of the screen. So, I think there's a lot to this, and we're really in our infancy of understanding all the ways art can be involved in healing. So in terms of the data, there's actually a lot of good data looking at very simple things we can do. You see, the ribbon that was created here, or some of the print techniques that were used, and people underwent therapy sessions where, they just did these 3 forms of art therapy over a 3-week course, and their mood was much better, as was their quality of life, and things that are often qualitative. Sometimes you go to the doctor and we put you through these batteries of tests, and we want to get a certain number, but at the end of the day, what's important to you and your loved one is that you feel better and you are doing better, and these therapies do just that. And we look at singing. We have a Parkinson's choir that we co-sponsor with the American Parkinson's Disease Association. And there was just this past weekend, Arts and Letters had a event here on FAU campus looking at how art can lead to healing. And, there's things more than just this sense of emotional connection. It actually changes the way your brain processes. So things like we were talking about, finding that those creative, artistic skills with Parkinson's, we know that if we have people sing as compared to people that weren't singing and they routinely practice, we see changes in their brain. On the right side of the screen, this is a functional MRI. And what we do is we compare those that that were singing and those that weren't singing, and then we overlay those images on top, and you can see changes that occur in certain regions of the brain. So you really can change the way the brain functions with some of these interventions. This holds true for just listening to music. This is something else that people can do very easily at home. These are some famous songs. We all know the wedding song, and, this Mozart sonatas, any of them. And really, I'm not sure that it matters which music you listen to, but just that you're listening with intent and you're thinking about it. This can actually be shown in psychological tests and neuropsychological skills, that it improves your ability to think in the abstract. While we're talking about this for patients with neurodegenerative disease, this holds true for all of us. So, I think there really is something to this mindfulness and sitting and being present and enjoying music or enjoying nature, and it can really change the way the brain works. So that's the sonata that patients heard. What about how else can music improve function? So we've talked about listening, we've talked about singing, but it can actually help you move better. There's been a lot of interest in music therapy, in Parkinson's in particular, but in a lot of patients. And, I think where the interest comes with Parkinson's is the way I describe Parkinson's to people without a medical background is by first starting with people that have a stroke and describing that. So what happens if you have a really bad stroke? Say I have that on the left side of my brain, everything is crisscrossed in my brain. I can't move the right side of my body. But if I have Parkinson's, I can move. And in fact, I move too much. So what the disease does is it speeds up that amplitude and makes it abnormal. So, it's kind of like listening to a radio station with a lot of static. So how can we get rid of that static? And things like a beat to music actually show a lot of promise and is something really kind of straightforward to do. Other than the tremor with Parkinson's, things that are really problematic and things that keep, people from being at home are a lack of balance, difficulty walking, slowness, and music can help with that. I wanted to show this video, which is really telling, of a gentleman who is working with a physical therapist with music playing and without music playing. We'll start without music playing. Maybe we'll start without music playing. Let me just, I'm going to just escape to this and see if it works, because it worked on my computer before I was on Zoom. Can you all see this? Excellent. Okay, so look at this gentleman just, this is kind of a Parkinson's gait. You see that he's shuffling a bit, and, you know, we have the therapist holding him. Amazing, right? So just a little bit of music can make all the difference, because it gives the brain something to focus on in terms of that beat. And, you know, so just little differences like this and little ways that we can integrate what we conventionally do with these, you know, thinking about art and all the things that we enjoy, can be really helpful. So this has been shown to improve mobility in a number of people, and it doesn't matter what kind of dance you do, or it doesn't matter what kind of music you listen to. Some of it's the enjoyment of that experience. The thing that's great about listening to music in a group is much about the sense of community. So I'll zoom out again. And so this was taken from a VA program.
Is Tango Central. Ready. A-N-G and T-A-N-G. Parkinson's patients are paired with volunteers, grad students to dancers in the community.
I like it, it's fun. Means a lot of cool people.
Lee and Jerry have come twice a week for a few years, not just because it's fun, but because it is helping Jerry.
I've noticed it organizes movement better, and with the steps, okay, you have to switch the thinking.
And, you know, this can just be a game changer for people. It was fun when I moved to Boca in last February, and we had all sorts of these events with patients in Albany, and some of my patients had moved down here, and they all had a connection with, so it was like being home, in that we continue to do many of these events here. We have more recently offered a Lego program where you're doing some building with Legos, and, you know, that idea what stemmed from some of this manual manipulation that people can do. So another thing that is, again, in the literature showing that symptoms can improve is clay and art therapy. So just these sessions of, you know, advancing skills. And, you know, this was fun because not only can you see how much more meaningful the clay projects got as time went on, all these people underwent that functional MRI imaging before and after this initiative, and showed that their brain changed the way it thought. So I am a big advocate of using these holistic treatments to make sure that patients get the care they need. But sometimes medication or holistic treatments isn't enough, and you need more than that to stay at home. And one of my area of expertise and what I did my fellowship training on, and what has really kept me going for the last 20 years, is deep brain stimulation. And, you know, this is a means of improving symptoms that people have. So let's see. So this is one of my patients, and this is what he looked like before he had surgery. And you can see he's got that tremor at rest on both sides.
Nothing.
And that's him after the surgery.
Yeah.
So, this was the first time I saw this surgery was probably in the year 2000. And I'd started my training in the late 90s. And once I saw this surgery, I said, this is what I want to do, because this is something that can really give back people's quality of life. So, this surgery works for Parkinson's, it works for tremor, it works for actually obsessive compulsive disorder, believe it or not. Those fibers travel in the same way as these other fibers. And what we do is to be able to stimulate the brain, we got to get it in the exact right spot. So we get some MRIs beforehand, but then during the procedure, everybody's brain is a little bit different. So we listen to individual cells in the brain. So I want to show you a recording from surgery that we have. And what we do is, you're asleep for everything. And then we wake up for about 10 minutes and you're not completely awake. We still have some of the anesthesia going in the background. Then we move your arm, and we move your arm in a rhythm where we count 1, 2, 3. And if we're in the right spot, you can hear the static in the background change to resonate with that 1, 2, 3. So listen here in this video.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. So that's actually us stimulating particular areas in your brain to make sure that we are in the right spot and that we can get the results that that gentleman had. So there's a lot that we do in medicine, and even more that we do in surgery, and even brain surgery that we do because, the person that trained us to do it taught us, and then the person before them taught us. But deep brain stimulation is probably, of all the things in neurosurgery, has the most evidence supporting it. There's been a number of randomized controlled trials, and these date back to the early 2000s, showing that this actually works. And it works really well, but it doesn't work for everything. The things it works for are any of the tremors does well. People can get stiff, and so it works for the stiffness, works for the slowness of movement. Sometimes if you ask patients to do this move where I tell them, pretend you're turning a doorknob. And so sometimes they'll go this slow and you can get it back up to near normal speed. When you think about Michael J. Fox, the symptoms that he shows aren't from his Parkinson's. Those are actually from the medication that treats the Parkinson's. So that movement and that dancing movement he has is from medication. So we can reduce the number of medications and reduce those abnormal movements. And ultimately, people really, almost always say, why didn't I do this sooner? There are things that don't get better. And, there's thinking doesn't get better. Speech can be a problem that doesn't get better. If you're depressed, this is not, we have to look at other ways to treat this. So we go through a huge battery of tests to make sure this is the right treatment for you. So, what about Alzheimer's, and does, this deep brain stimulation work for that? Well, we've looked into this for years, and, it's actually interesting because the way we came up with this idea was when one of the cases of somebody had, Parkinson's and got a deep brain stimulator. They were in an area that controlled memory, and we could induce different memories for them. So this idea had come to pass. And, as of yet, this is still an idea. This is not approved by the FDA. The evidence isn't strong enough to recommend this. There is something here, and we hold hope. But, just to let you know where the future is going with that, we're working on it. The data holds true for a certain subset of people and a certain subset of symptoms. Again, this is not ready for prime time, and I wouldn't recommend this to my loved one. Having said that, I think that over the next 5 years, 10 years, we're going to see some very meaningful changes in this field. So with that, I've gone everywhere from clay to brain surgery in this talk. And, I think that, what's important is all these health techniques are available to everyone and probably good for many of us for a variety of reasons. Deep brain stimulation is something that we can offer to patients with Parkinson's when medications fail. And, no matter what, I'm biased. The brain is my favorite organ. And, there's so many different things we can do to improve its performance and keep our quality of life. So I couldn't be more excited to be in this field. I wanted to, let you all know that in addition to Marcus Integrative Health, one of the things we have is FAU Medicine. We know that there is a shortage of primary care docs in our community. And so to that end, we hired a number of new docs that are taking new patients. We put the QR code and information here. So if you're looking for a doctor, this is where I send my family. Think about joining us there. And we have right adjacent to Marcus Integrative Health. So we have that balance of East meets West medicine. I have a huge team of people in addition to Sarah that support me and would just like to give them a shout out and thanks. So thanks so much for your attention, and I'm happy to take any questions anybody may have.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Plitzis. I really love how you speak in terms that all of us can understand regardless of our background. I think that's so important in the education of these important health matters. Before we open up for Q&A, we would like to add a link, which will be going into the chat box for a brief survey. We kindly ask you to take 1 minute to share your feedback about today's event. Thank you in advance. Your feedback is very important to us. It is what allows us to continue offering this important programming to the community. With that, I'll give everyone just a moment so that you can complete the survey, and then I will hand it back over to Dr. Plitzis. You can put your questions in the chat box so that we can get to everyone today. We have about 7 to 8 minutes to do so. All right, so at this time, let's take a look at our chat box and see if we have any questions. Feel free to raise your hand.
I see Robin.
Yes, go ahead, Robin, feel free to unmute.
First of all, thank you so much. That was so easy to understand, and I actually understood everything you were saying. I happen to have like a dear friend who is young and has Parkinson's, and is deep brain stimulation something that is offered he's here, he's in town. I'm going to text him as soon as we finish. I'm just hoping that it's something that he's looking into or has already tried. So I don't know.
This is something I do. And, this is what my fellowship training is. And so we'll connect, and, I'm happy to give my information. Sarah has it. And, I'd love to, just see and talk and figure out whether somebody is a candidate. I think we had people often ask me what my most meaningful case was. And I had a young girl with a genetic form of Parkinson's who was 15. And so all she wanted was to go to the prom. And so we got her there. And, that was really just, every time I say it, like I get chills because it can be so life-changing.
Yeah, he's in his 50s.
Yeah. And, I think that's actually, for me, really rewarding because, people are in their prime of life and want to keep going.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have another question from Dr. Michelle at College of Medicine, revealing her bias. We know her passion and expertise in meditation. Can you speak about the effects of meditation on brain health, please?
Oh my goodness. Dr. Michelle, there are so many, and I am actually, really interested in this topic and have done a number of studies on this, and I'm familiar with the literature on this. So, what's really kind of neat about, well, let's start with the people that are like pros at meditation, like the experts in meditation. When you put them in an fMRI and you put somebody that doesn't meditate in an fMRI, the differences are huge. So just so many differences in processing things and reacting to stressors and you know, really just like, you know, easy for anybody to see the differences on that fMRI. So then let's say, okay, you know, what about people that undergo some of like the, you know, we have at Marcus, the stress relaxation program. So 6 weeks, 12 weeks of meditation. Even in those people, you can see changes already in the fMRI. What I was interested in is, you know, I do surgery, and sometimes after surgery, people have a hard time recovering. So I said, well, I wonder if, you know, like you used meditation as a way to reduce the amount of pain people had post-operatively, would there be brain changes? And indeed, there actually are, even after, you know, 5-10 minute sessions over the course of a week. So this is something like, you know, people say like, if you quit smoking, you'll feel better within like a week, and, you know, your breathing changes automatically. It's the same thing with meditation. So give it a try. And, you know, you can even see changes as early as, you know, 5 days.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Do I have any other hands? I'm trying to monitor both the chat box and our guests on camera. Any other questions for Dr. Politzis while we have her here? Okay, wonderful. Well, we are just about out of time, and I'd like to thank you all for being here, particularly Dr. Politzis. We hope you'll make plans to join us next week. Same link, same date, and same time, next Wednesday at noon with Ananda Nelson, LCSW. And we'll be learning how to cultivate a deeper sense of meaning, presence, and connection through the practice of meditation during next week's experiential presentation. Until then, be well and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you all very much.